On this episode, we ruthlessly gut everything that doesn't support your core theme.
If the game element comes out on top of the salad, I send it back.
Welcome to Save Every Universe. My name is Alec Garcia. I am a boy on a journey with a half bird, half mammal. And despite what people say, you know what? It's not as good as the game that came before it. It's okay.
That's who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And that's how you would describe, like, you go to dinner and that's how you describe
That's how
yourself.
I introduce myself. That's why most of the time when I introduce myself, it's a conversation killer. It's not one of my skills.
My name's Robbie. I've lost all memory of who I once was, and after being rescued by members of my secret order, must stop the conspirators trying to destroy my people and hopefully remember my past along the way.
Memento.
Oh, you won't get it.
No, I won't.
No. It's a really, it's a mobile game you've never heard of.
Oh, you're going to pull that card, huh? After I did that to you?
It's mostly German.
my influences are mostly German.
It's a German mobile game I play.
Is it really a mobile game?
No, it's not a mobile game. I don't play mobile games. I just know you won't get it. It's
Amnesia.
a PC game. No, it's a PC game.
That was on.
It was before your time.
Anyway, last time, who were you last time? Did you say already?
I was Kira Carson from Star Wars Old Republic.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Some more Star Wars stuff that nobody knows. You knew who Jimmy was, right? About the brother who killed the samurai brother and whatever.
Yeah. He was Hanzo from Overwatch.
That was a good one. He was very into that.
Yes, he was. I did confirm it with him before this episode, though.
And last time I was Ethan from Resident Evil 7, the protagonist that you play as. And I said wife Mia. I honestly can't remember and don't know if it is the wife or if it's a girlfriend.
I thought she was a girlfriend.
I was so scared of that game. Like, I bought it because it was on sale. And so if you have been a listener, we talked about it in VR. Mm-hmm. I played past the point that I played to in VR, and I was like, okay, I can do this. This isn't VR. If it's not VR, it's not that bad, and I can do this, and I know what's coming. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And I couldn't play it, dude. That game is so mother effing scary. Like, I've been a big fan of the franchise for so long, and like, they went from bubblegum bullcrap jumping out a window doing triple backflips in 5 and 6 to Evil Within level scary. Mm-hmm. I couldn't play it. I couldn't. I had to tuck my tail and walk away from it, dude. It is so mother effing scary.
So I've watched a lot of the Let's Play footage from Tony's playthrough.
Yeah.
And he started a channel too, The Grain Gamer. You can go check him out.
Yeah.
But I had like nightmares just from watching him screaming while playing.
And so so like I played up to the point where the girlfriend or wife or whatever she is, like, she like goes into weird crazy attack mode and like stabs you in the face. I played all that in VR, so I played a little bit past that, and it just gets worse, dude. Like, she like stabs your hand into the wall.
Of course it gets worse, dude. That's
with
the
a screwdriver, and then cuts your arm off with a chainsaw, and then the dad guy like is like not chasing you, he's like walking real slow and creepy, and he catches up to you and beats you with a shovel, and then he chops your leg off, and then he gives you medicine to heal it, and it's just like, it's so freaking sadistic, dude.
Normal in-law stuff.
I'm sure Tony's listening to this and just laughing, dude, but like, Tony from our horror episode, if you haven't listened to that one,
keeps going.
Dude, it is so crazy. I couldn't.
You didn't get to the mom or any of that, right?
No.
Yeah. See,
I couldn't do it, dude. Well, and the grandma, like, you just go upstairs and the grandma's sitting there in a wheelchair, and then you come back out and she's gone, and then the guy's chasing you through the house again, and
the grandma things are reoccurring.
Dude, like,
throughout.
Just even thinking about it, like, my heart's like palpitating, dude. It's too much, man. I totally have turned into a wuss with horror games.
Dude, there's nothing wrong with that.
Either I turned into a wuss, or like the bar has really gone up with horror games.
Well, there's some truth to that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because it's
the Evil Within, dude, was like, that game was even scarier than like the original Silent Hill, and the original Silent Hill was scary, but like, Evil Within put the bar up, and then I feel like Resident Evil 7 like came up to meet that, dude. Like, games have gotten scarier.
It's like that Wreck-It Ralph. When did video games get so scary and violent? Yeah. That's not what we're talking about today, though.
No. So, if you've listened to our past episodes, I did mention that I had downloaded the remaster of Shadow of Colossus, and you played through it back in the day on
I played through it back
PS2
in the
or
day.
PS3.
Yeah, PS2.
The original.
Yeah.
I actually have a little bit of a bone to pick with literally everyone I've talked to about this game, because, I hadn't played it. I was like, oh yeah, is that good? And people said, oh yeah, no, it's a great game. And I really don't feel like it's a great game. I'd be prepared to call it an important game, but like, when I played through it, there were moments where I was so insanely frustrated or so insanely bored that it was even after I had gotten into it, even after I had like beat a couple Colossi, I still struggled with it at points and found it really, really frustrating. But at the same time, I could see that it was a really different game, and the way that it was designed mind was really like I messaged you and I was like,
Right.
It is as if some developers got together and one was like, hey, people only really like boss fights.
Yeah.
And then someone else was like, okay, cool, let's make a game with just boss fights. And that was before I had like really studied anything about what we're really going to dive into today, which is the concept of subtractive design, which is what the creator of those games, so Ico, and then Shadow of the Colossus, and then The Last Guardian.
Right.
So Fumito Ueda
Yeah.
is the designer of these games, and he is now famous for this concept called subtractive design, where you really remove anything from the game that is not essential. And I was so taken aback unexpectedly by Shadow of the Colossus, and just like it is a stark, completely different game from any other game that's out there in terms of how it's put together.
Yeah.
That I felt like it was worth its own episode. What have you on the docket today, Robbie?
So let's start maybe there with Shadow of the Colossus. I haven't played The Last
And
Guardian.
then we can kind of go out to taking that concept and applying it to larger things. But go ahead.
So when it came out, there are people who this is like their favorite game of all time.
Yeah.
They're very enthusiastic.
I mean, there's such a cult following that there's people with YouTube channels dedicated to uncovering the secrets of Shadow of the Colossus, who believe there's a secret 17th Colossus. And like, I mean, people got really into this game.
Yeah. So I will say I played it and I described it and thought of it as a game of nothing but boss fights.
Right.
And thought of it as kind of simple in that sense.
Yeah.
Like at first, the appeal of it was just these are big epic fights. That's cool.
Yeah.
It had some dark underpinnings as you get further into the story.
And I mean, spoilers, I guess, but I mean, it's been around since PS2, so just go play it or whatever. But the ending is really dark and really counter to what you would expect from sort of like a quote traditional game ending. And
right. And it left me, we were what, in high school or something?
Yeah.
I think when that came out. So, but I was old enough to be uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
Right. Like it left me with this uneasy feeling. It was a beautiful game, but just the coloration of it, that kind of dusky, like you almost feel like you're in the spirit world for large parts of it.
And the voices that are telling you where the next Colossus is and stuff is like you don't really know if they're good forces or bad forces or what's going on.
Like at the time I was like kind of creeped out in some ways by it. I was like, this is like a demon or like it kind of freaked me out a little bit. And I found out later that was the point, right? It's supposed to be that kind of neutral, uncomfortable. I liked it. I liked the hero moments, especially there's like specific fights, some of the early fights, the flying fight that I loved those moments where I just like my character screaming for his horse because it was like I was about to get smashed. Aggro. And like I loved that he changed his tone. Like aggro. And he's like all cheerful, but when shit was going down, he's like aggro.
Or there's like a casual whistle or like a really desperate whistle.
So all of those moments that you experience were like really magical.
A lot of other people had pointed to this as like the beginning point of like, holy crap, that's what games can be. That's the type of game I want to make. From like the developer of Rime, the Naughty Dog developers of with Uncharted, like there's a lot of people that argue like we wouldn't have The Last of Us, we wouldn't have Uncharted, where it really made you feel something.
Well, so on that note, like it seems, and I think you're right, and I know the theory is right. Once you strip away all that extra stuff and you've put them in this lonely world and you've only given them like one friend or whatever, it really adds to the gravity of that emotional attachment, right? It gives it that emotional punch. And those are the things you see done successfully afterwards, right? In games like Last of Us. And because I think on the surface, you would go, those aren't anything like each other. Those games aren't really that similar, other than I guess if you want to generically say they're dark or whatever. But I think it's that emotional attachment from the simplicity that's where you can start easily seeing the parallels.
And if you listen to interviews with the developers of The Last of Us, they looked at books like The Road and were like, they saw this relationship between a man and a boy, and they were like, how do we make that intimate relationship playable? Which is kind of the same approach that they took with Wander and Aggro and with I can't remember the characters' names, but the boy and the princess from Ico and the boy and the animal from The Last Guardian. Like the developer of A Way Out, who before that did a game called Brothers. Like all of those games were super influenced by Ico and Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah, and I think in that sense you can see it, right? You can see that companionship, that reliance, that kind of us against the world type mindset.
Yeah.
I mean, in that sense, it all comes together, and you can definitely see the inspiration.
Well, and games went from sort of having like this big grand adventure where it was like a traditional, like a Zelda kind of thing, where it's like boy going to rescue the princess in this big grand open world, and sort of like stripped all that away and brought it down into this really just like an intimate experience, like what we've been talking about.
Right.
Whether you're working through the world together, and the relationship, you feel more for the relationship as you go through the world.
I think there's some interesting trends here too to look at. And I think you can see it kind of in technology in general, and you see it in movies, but you start with simple games like arcade games,
right.
Pac-Man, Galaga. Those are simple games. They were not maybe considered simple because that was complex at the time, but that was kind of pushing it as far as it could go. And then at some point, like, technology got ahead of what was good storytelling. And it got complicated and burdensome. There's crazy menus and things that don't make sense and things that are just jammed into games because they can be. And we
like it has to be open world and we need a crafting system and we have to,
And somewhere along the way, like, that simplicity that we had to do now is like becoming what we want to do. It's kind of interesting to see some of those things.
Like as the to say it a little differently, like as the technology became available, like people were like, great, let's throw the kitchen sink and see what we can do with all this stuff. And then there's like this little niche underneath that of developers who are coming in and saying, okay, let's use the tools, but let's use them well and let's strip away all the fluff.
And you see that in movies, right? You see those trends, the Michael Bay, crazy, ridiculous, big budget.
And some people love those and some people are like,
but you see those trends with like where everything was CG for a while and everything was this crazy unnecessary animation. You see it in music, there was rise of technology, then you get all the crazy 80s stuff and all this acid.
Or all the like the voice, what is it, the auto-tune, and then like everything was auto-tuned. And
so you see those trends where we like get carried away with the technology
and then there's
a
spirit of like, let's strip all that away and let's just tell an authentic core story here.
Because you realize you've lost the message, you've lost the heart of whatever it is you were getting at.
So applying that though to like a bigger, like some of the bigger things that have been happening in gaming in general. I played Assassin's Creed Origins recently.
Oh, I thought you hated that game.
But I also bought Hitman. First of all, such a cool concept. They released the game in installments of locations, and each one is a huge sandbox that you can solve like with like 100 different challenges of how to take down these 2 targets in one location. And I think they released like 5 or 6 locations. And so you can pay $60 and you got the game in installments, sort of. So it was like a $60 season pass. Such a cool idea, first of all, but that's a topic for another day. But I was thinking about, I had Assassin's Creed fresh in my mind, and then I had Hitman that I have been playing recently. I was like, okay, both of these games, like if you were to explain to somebody what these were who didn't know games, both of them are games about assassins killing high value targets, right? But they're completely different games. And why? And I think there's just so much value in this idea of subtractive design. So I guess we didn't really give a definition, but subtractive design is basically where you strip away anything that doesn't support the core of like what makes this game this game. So with Shadow of Colossus, it was about the relationship between the boy and the girl and the boy and the horse and fighting big monsters. Like that, and that was it. And they stripped away anything that didn't support that. So, but I was thinking about Hitman.
There's the idea of like, so there's the idea, what I was reading was like, there's an idea of a misfit, right? So instead of going like, we need to jam all this in, when something you can just tell it doesn't fit and it defies those core elements, you take it out. So if like,
which is such a contradictory thing to what a lot of AAA developers are doing. They really are trying to just shovel on like more microtransactions and more crafting systems and a bigger open world and more side missions and adding more DLC and all this bullshit, which is why God of War is so cool. They're like, it's $60. Here's the game. No DLC. You're going to love it. Like, that's awesome. Like, and they know the story that they're telling. And it's so refreshing to like hear a developer talk about, we made this great experience and it's really about a father and a son going on this journey. And like it's very much inspired by The Last of Us. But I mean, whether it's that relationship or whatever, it's refreshing to hear a developer talk about like a really clear vision for a game instead of just shoveling stuff on top.
Yeah, I definitely like it just from like a pragmatic point of view, right? Because it's just, if you're trying to add all these bells and whistles, even when you know it doesn't fit,
it kind of just stinks like the developers don't know what the hell they're doing and they're just trying to make something to make money instead of like really creating something that they believe in.
And it becomes this like a cumbersome beast. You find yourself just with all these like, well, what the fuck is that about moments as the player.
Doing side quests just for the sake of having,
I guess I ought to
filling
do
up hours
because they're there.
Yeah.
Like it's a difference of like, say, side quests in, personally, I didn't do a lot of side quests in Zelda Breath of the Wild. They didn't pull on me. But there are other games like Mass Effect or something like that.
Yeah.
Not Andromeda. Mass Effect 3. And I hear like Witcher 3 has
where you
like,
feel like there's a lot of
side
value
quests.
to go do those. Yeah,
There's
and
these great
AC
twists,
Origins,
and
I did feel like that was
right.
Yeah.
So there's a difference there. If they're just wanting to fill in side content because it builds out the world, that's cool.
Yeah.
But if it's just like, well, we don't have enough playtime, or people are playing through this too quickly,
Yeah.
we need to like add unnecessary length. Unless length was your core element of the game,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be going after that, you know? So just, I think from just a sheer like management and
Yeah.
like realistic standpoint, I dig the subtractive design in that regard.
Well, and even if like, so I think Shadow of Colossus is a really good example because it is the extreme. Like if you're looking to an example for what is subtractive design, what is a game stripped down to its nuts and bolts, Shadow of the Colossus is like the example, I think.
Yes.
But there's a range, there's degrees. So going back to the Hitman, Assassin's Creed point, on the surface of them, they're both about you play as an assassin that kills high value targets, right? But if you really strip down to like what is the heart and soul and core of that game, with Assassin's Creed, a big part of what makes that game special is feeling like you're in this really amazing historical setting and feeling like you're in the middle of these historical events and you're like influencing history with your actions and those, like that's more the core of the game.
The history.
Is the history and the setting. With Hitman, it really is more of a cheeky, like how many fun ways can you kill this person?
Yeah.
And so if you take Assassin's Creed Origins and Hitman, they both are examples of games where they really did in a subtractive way sort of go back, like what makes this game special, and then they delivered on that in a big way. And the new Hitman, like I think it won Game of the Year in whatever category it was in or whatever.
Germany.
But there's a Game of the Year edition for it. But they, like, if you play that game, dude, it's like they didn't take themselves too seriously. It's a super fun game, and you can kill people like by pretending to be a flower man and sneaking in and hiding in a box and stabbing him in the neck with a screwdriver. It doesn't take itself seriously. It knows exactly what it is, and it delivered on that. It's a pure freaking joy to play.
I think you can tell the success of these examples too, because what are the players who play those games talking about?
Right, exactly.
If you get two players who are playing Origins, they're talking about, wasn't it crazy when so-and-so showed up? Wasn't it cool that Leonardo da Vinci let me fly his...
Or what a beautiful setting, and can you believe, like, when you're riding your camel and there's the pyramids that nobody, like, and the thing everyone bitched about is the assassinations were repetitive, and the combat system was really lazy, and people aren't playing it for the assassinations. People aren't playing it for the combat. They're playing it for the historical setting and all that stuff. They're playing Hitman for the assassinations, though.
Right.
And
I don't think I ever had a conversation with somebody when I was like, oh, did you kill your target by stabbing him with your hand blade?
Yeah.
Because I stabbed him with my sword blade.
Yeah.
Wow, it's so different.
Yeah.
Like, you just, those weren't the things you talked about.
In my notes, I actually had, what's the difference between Assassin's Creed and Hitman? It's not the fucking wrist blade.
Right, but in a Hitman, those are the things you are talking about. How'd you take it down?
I corroded that guy one time, but then the other time I opened the barrels with a crowbar and crushed him.
Exactly.
And So in a bigger sense applied to more games, I think that's something that developers, especially with those like multi-installment games, more developers would benefit from what Assassin's Creed and what Hitman have done, because those franchises have gone on over time.
Right.
And it's like they release a couple and they, like, some of them kind of lose their way, and then they say, okay, really, what's the core experience here? Let's strip away the bullshit and, like, why are people playing this game? And then they put out something good. I think essentially, even though it's very different ways, it's the same approach that Assassin's Creed, Hitman, that what made those successes is the same thing, same reason why people love Shadow of the Colossus.
Well, I think you're right. And I think sometimes you even see it from the beginning and then they get better. Like, for me at least, and if this is blasphemy, I apologize. But for me, like, Mass Effect 1 has like a cumbersome inventory system.
Right.
The combat is a little clunky. The conversations can be kind of awkward. Like, it just doesn't quite, it's a good game, but when you compare it to like 2 or 3, they've streamlined shit. They're like, okay, look, here's what you got. Like, what do we want? We want a cool space environment. We want deep relationships.
Yeah.
We want cool dialogue and solid combat.
Yeah.
So you don't feel like an idiot because you're Commander Shepard and you're up against these odds. So you've got to feel powerful when you're fighting. And you can tell they streamlined a lot of things. They cut out a bunch of bullshit, and Mass Effect 2 and 3 are a lot better because of it.
Right.
So World of Warcraft is simpler in many ways than when it first came out. The inventory system is still crazy. There's so many obsolete items in that world now, like so much random shit you can find. Like, what is that for? Well, that's no longer necessary as of patch whatever. But even like the talent system and the way you leveled up and even what your base stats are VR have completely changed because it was so complicated and so cumbersome. And I think you see that a lot on any older MMOs, but also RPGs. Like I'm trying to play through The Witcher 1, and even after modding the shit out of it, and I've even cheated a little bit, it's still like, I can't believe I just died 3 times on a boss.
Yeah.
And I'm hacked. Like I've got tons of talents, like a really great sword and armor, and I got the shit kicked out of me. And a lot of it is me just not understanding what the fuck is going on. Like just me being like, I was supposed to click on something else. Like it's hard. It's hard to understand. And I think in that regard, like I think interfaces, how much streamlined. I mean, that's a minor design compared to like a big picture like Shadow of the Colossus.
Right.
But having like a less cumbersome interface that's just like to the point.
Like what can we remove as a barrier to the experience for the player?
And it is a barrier. Ashley was watching me play The Witcher and was like, oh my God. Like I brought up my inventory menu and she's like, there's an old game. They don't do that anymore. I'm like, no, they really don't. Because it's too complicated.
So I think it's a fine line. We'll post it on our Facebook page if I can think of it. But there was a guy, I think he got hired as he was like super nerd, like in the college dorm kind of thing. And I think he ended up getting hired or something like that but Gwent is his game, the card game that's based on.
I don't think it's in Witcher 1. I think
they released it as a standalone now though, right?
Yeah.
But he was talking about like the difficulty of the nerfing versus buffing conversation. And after a game's out in the world of applying subtractive design and how difficult that is. And so like with Shadow of the Colossus, like they went into it, we're going to bare bones this thing and we're going to tell the most meaningful story with the least interruption to that, right? From the very beginning. But some of these games that are like MMO-ish or whatever, it becomes more difficult because if you put something out and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, we should subtract this, it will be better. Sometimes they take things away and it is destructive to the player base because players feel like they lost something instead of it being like this meaningful choice from the beginning.
Right.
You know?
Like you're thinking, I'm sure, of Destiny.
So, I mean, like, yeah, from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2, they're like, oh, we'll take this out. We'll take out random rolls on guns and because we want to be whatever.
Streamlined, casual.
And pro game, I heard an argument that they did it because they wanted to be more pro game league friendly and to like remove variables and it would be more about gunplay and that's why they did it because they wanted to try to like push. I don't know if that's true, but
I hope it's
but like all these dumbass reasons. But like for the people who were just like the hardcore non-professional people who were playing it as an MMO, that was a dumbass choice,
right? Because there were people out there grinding the same gun
to get the god roll of that gun, and it took away that whole reason to grind. Yeah, so I think it is a difficult thing to apply subtractive design in hindsight.
Yeah, I think so too. I think WoW's done a fairly good job, but they always piss people off with it too.
Yeah.
Like overall,
you're going to get blowback no matter what. You're never going to make any, like 100% of the base happy.
Generally in the like stuff I've played, I've been overall happy with it.
Yeah.
But there has been some like, well, what about this spell? And what about that? But I use that all the time. Yeah. Now I don't even own it. It's not even in my spell book. Yeah. Like it can be a little jarring and you get this sense of entitlement. Like you got robbed all of a sudden.
They took it away from me.
I do think though, I don't know how much, like I think you could oversimplify some things.
I would agree with that.
I think like some JRPGs or real-time strategy games, like I wouldn't want them all to play like Uncharted. Like I want games like Uncharted.
Well, and some games are loved because of their intricacies and because of their complexities.
Like Monster Hunter,
right?
Is a good example. Like people love it. People love
and you want a rich crafting system, or you really do want those things. But I think that has to do with the outset of the game, and I think where it gets hairy is where people are tacking shit onto their games just to be cool or just to like add an extra bullet point in their game description, like big worlds, crafting, and it's like, okay, if it's meaningful and it's designed like that's what this game is about. It's about hunting monsters and crafting shit. That's like, that is true. Like with Monster Hunter, that is true to the game. Like, and with Gwent, the guy on YouTube that I was watching, he was talking about how like card combinations really are the heart of the game. And so meaningful, rich, multiple ways you can attack it. If you reduce that too much, you lose the heart of the game.
It becomes too simple. Like you just don't want to repeat or whatever.
You have no reason to come back to the game and try new combinations and those kinds of things.
Now those things can be intimidating too. Like I think there's plenty of people who don't even want to touch Monster Hunter because it's just like you see the wall of numbers and you're like, no.
That's me. Like the craft, like they were like, it's a rich crafting system. I was like, I'm not playing.
And that's fair. And even I've been a little bit like, I start looking stuff up and like, well, you got to get your decorations set and all this stuff. That's real. That's the real term.
Yeah.
I see the look on your
face. Get your decorations.
Decorate. And I start being like, I don't know. Do I really want to put in like, because it almost becomes like a research project.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm going to have to go online. I'm going to have to understand what stats do this. And I used to do it in WoW. Oh, well, I got a max min. And I think Jimmy's used that term on here before. Maximize, minimal, whatever. Like I got to be the most efficient. And sometimes, man, I just want to get on and kill shit, or I just want to read a good story, or so I can see both sides of that coin.
Yeah.
But I'm I wouldn't argue that every game should be like Shadow of the Colossus.
Should be minimalist, yeah.
Right. Though they have a great place.
So I think that's a good wrap-up point. I don't think every game should be a minimalist experience, but I do think every game could benefit from more critical thought in that direction of, even if we don't gut everything, if a rich crafting system is essential to this game, then that's what we really need to focus on. But just more critical thought about, like, why the hell are people playing our game? And let's make those core things really good. We talked on the MMO episode last time where Jimmy was talking about how in Final Fantasy 14 that they added a PvP and they kind of did it poorly. Yeah. When really Final Fantasy 14, like, their core competencies are an awesome PvE experience, rich stories, the characters,
beautiful settings.
So focus on that. Like, that's why people come to Final Fantasy. They don't come to it for PvP.
Right. That's a good.
Like, I think more designers could benefit from at least that thinking.
So last question for you before we wrap up. How do you think the minimalist design or subtractive design applied to, what's the name of that fucking game you were crazy about? Lost in Space.
Dead Space.
No. The other one about exploring and going to a new planet, working your way to these.
No Man's Sky?
No Man's Sky. I've tried to play it and it was like deceptively simple.
Yeah.
I was like, there was nothing helping me.
I was one of the few people who actually liked No Man's Sky at launch. I played it to the center of the universe. I get the gripes that were there about I mean, it was like Ubisoft graphical downgrade times 100. Like, they really didn't deliver on some of the stuff they promised. But overall, I thought it was such a cool concept, and I actually overall enjoyed the game, even though it wasn't quite what they promised.
So it was kind of simplistic in some ways, right? It seems like they were trying to get at a core idea and just put what was necessary to get to that.
And it kind of seems like before launch, they did get pushed, like, oh, what about multiplayer? What about that? And they like kind of started making promises they really couldn't deliver on. But when you look at like the early stuff of like, what is this game? They were like, it's a game about flying around and exploring and surviving, and that's it.
So
that's
do you think they
game.
accomplished it? And do you think they had kind of a similar, like, streamlined core idea?
I do think they accomplished it. Like, as it was delivered, and like, even as it was coming out, people were like, well, they promised multiplayer. I was like, they're not going to do that. Like, it's so far away from what the game was promised, like what they said they were developing at the beginning, that even if they deliver it, it won't be good. Like, the core experience really was exploration. I personally had a good experience with it, using all my resources to warp jump to like a new star system, getting there, and there's one planet, and the planet is like devoid of most resources, and just like scraping and scrimping to survive, to like build up one more warp cell just to get out of that star system to get to something that was richer. And I had a good experience, and it was like one of those, like, that's one of the gaming experiences that I remember, like, on a visceral level, like, how the hell am I going to get out of this star system? And then like feeling really good when I finally crafted that warp cell and jumped out of that system and stuff. I liked it. I think it was a good game, and I wish more than anything they would have had the balls to just stay true to like, this is what this game is, and probably not charged $60 for it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was just kind of curious. I know you ended up liking it and you were just excited about it, but
yeah.
I mean, I think it's a cool idea, but it was also kind of, I think, exceptional in that it seemed like they started out that way and then got pressured to be something else, but it was so late in the development cycle that it wasn't ever going to be what everyone thought it was going to be. I'm happy with games that are subtractive and have the courage to be that, and I think they'll always find fans that pick it up.
I mean, like, going full circle, like, if you look at Eco, if you look at Shadow, they weren't these like massive, overwhelming commercial successes when they first came out, and they're kind of masterpieces in hindsight now. And at the time, like, they were like quiet sleepers, and then they were cult hits because people really appreciated the vision that was there and the craft that was there. And I do wish more developers would have the cojones, the balls, to just like stick to the vision that they want to create.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you for listening to Save Every Universe. If you enjoyed this episode, please go give us a review on iTunes or Android, I guess. I'm not an Android guy. I don't know.
We're actually on Spotify now.
Oh, yeah, we're on Spotify now.
Yeah, we just got approved. So
if that works better for you, we've had a couple of people already tell us that Spotify was better for them because they didn't listen on the podcast apps and stuff on phones.
Yeah, so if you can just type in Save Every Universe and you'll find us on there. And if you have any suggestions, some quibbles with us, or any beef with us about an episode, you can reach us at saveeveryuniverse@gmail.com.
So just for the record, that is SAVEEVERY. There's two E's. We've had somebody tell us that they tried to send us an email a couple times, and I have a feeling there's an E missing.
Right, so just think of it without spaces. Save every universe at gmail.com.
Yeah.
No spaces.
No spaces. Bye.